We want this aha moment, this almost demystify what this is, especially if you're out there listening, watching, and you have others around you that you want to connect with. You want to bring them closer to your world. I mean, this is genuinely, I feel like, the way. It's not going to be an extra lift on your part. It's just, thinking it through, strategy, either doing it yourself or working with someone like us, and literally turning this around and turning it on.
I believe we're all one conversation away. So what if your podcast interviews could continue that conversation, whether you're awake or asleep? What if every brilliant answer you gave on an interview could live on, dynamically, responding to prospects anytime? Now, that's what I call leverage. Today's episode of the Podcast Interview Marketing Show, it's a mind-expanding conversation with my friend, Joe Fier. Now, Joe is the co-host of Hustle and Flowcharts podcast, and he's the first ever user of a new technology. It's Delphi AI. And Joe's not just talking about AI, he's about showing us how we can use our own AI clone, basically his digital twin, to build authority, create connection, and convert conversations into real business growth. We're diving into a new era of podcast interview marketing, one where one great conversation can ripple into thousands more. Joe reveals how category leaders can now engage with an individual at scale, answer questions on autopilot, and even turn their static content into dynamic two-way conversations. If you're looking to scale your impact without sacrificing authenticity, you're going to love what Joe shares. This isn't theory. This is strategy. This is the future. Let's get into it. Joe, I am so excited to talk with you. You know, we met years ago through Hustle and Flowcharts, seen all that you've done through here, and I just interacted with your AI clone. And, it's amazing. So before we jump into that, can you sort of explain to the layman what an AI clone is?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tom. It's great to be here, by the way. Thanks for having me. An AI clone it comes in many forms, but the way that I see an AI clone, it's a dynamic conversation that someone can have online. Text, audio, video is kind of coming as well. And the clone is based on the intellectual property or anything that the individual chooses to have it trained on. So when I think of a clone, again, there's kind of different variations. There's scripted clones. That might be something you've seen on like a video clone on TikTok or Instagram. But that's not the type of clones the one that you engaged of mine. Those are scripted. They're like predefined, and they're based on literally a script and then rendered out this video. An AI clone, or you can even think of it as like a digital twin or digital mind or brain, is it's literally it has a knowledge base of your material. Let's call it any text, audio, video that you might have published publicly or you have privately, built into this digital mind that then kind of understands, or really does understand, how you speak and how you write. So then it can communicate with pretty much any language to anyone around the world 24/7, dynamically understanding what people are asking, so it has context and it's personalized. So it's a complete unique experience for every single person.
And it's one of those things that you have to experience to truly understand what it is and what it isn't. And maybe I always start with, what problem does it solve? So maybe we've talked about this, but can you go back and talk about your experience here and what problem your digital mind, your AI clone, was really solving for you and your community?
Yeah, it started nearly 3 years ago. Around the time this is getting released, and I was on a hunt because I've had my podcast Hustle and Flowchart for almost 8 years now. At the time, it was 3 years earlier. I had a show producer, or sorry, I still have a producer, but I had a co-host. We created content for a lot of years, and even prior to the show. and myself included, my training courses, podcasts, emails, blogs, social media posts. I was like, it'd be really cool to make it a dynamic conversation, especially with the podcast. How do I make it a two-way chat where I'm not just talking at listeners or viewers, and I can feel like they can have the access to this body of knowledge in a way that can help them in a personalized way, kind of like how I described with what a clone can do. That's literally where it started. I was just looking at my podcast, knowing that AI was very early. ChatGPT, I think, just rolled out at the time. And I was like, it would be really awesome to have an experience like that, but is personalized and feels human like, not a question answer chat bot, almost dumb bot feel. Because you saw a lot of those back in the day, 3 years ago, back in the day. So I actually took to Twitter at the time. It was before X, and because that's where a lot of these AI people still to this day, if you want to see some of the earliest tech, go over to X, and you can find these people posting in a bunch of apps that you probably never heard of. And I tested probably nearly 20 of these chat bots, and they all felt like dumb bots where, it's like, you upload your knowledge base, but it's just going to give you kind of just a standard answer, nothing personalized to the human. And then I was like, I envisioned something. I just don't want to build it. I want to find a tool out there, a platform that already exists. Because I'm not that guy. I'm not made to build a whole thing from ground up. Then I found Delphi, this platform that I joined. I didn't know at the time. I became the first user because I signed up because I was like, this looks like the thing. It actually feels like it can have a personality if I give it enough of my own IP. So then it learns. And, I'm choosing to put into this knowledge base. And sure enough, that was like the light bulb moment for me. I realized, okay, on my podcast, what you're doing here, Tom, is I get to curate the right people for my audience. And it starts with me. Like my podcast was a selfish endeavor. I wanted to learn, and I wanted to surround myself with some of the brightest minds. So I created a platform, the podcast, invited them on. But then I realized, who I invite on has ripple effects out into the world. So I know that person is going to connect, or whoever's listening or watching will connect to what we're talking about in some way. And then that's probably going to affect some other people's lives. And, it's this ripple that can happen. Like, how do I make this a tidal wave? Like, how do I make this a bigger ripple and make it an interactive experience? And that's how this all started.
Yeah, and it's Delphi.ai. So DELPHI.ai if you want to check it out. And it was so amazing because, we always talk about one conversation away, right? I believe that we're conversations away, not funnels away. But it's like this idea of two things. One, how do you have those conversations at scale? And then the other thing that you just pointed out is dynamic conversations. So right now, somebody is listening in on this, and that's great, right? They're eavesdropping on the conversation. But this technology allows them, as you would say, to have a dynamic conversation with you. And it's last week I mentioned I talked with you. And I think of it as I talked with you, right?
Yeah.
And then another one of my friends, Al Ramadan, right? And I talked with his Delphi, and it was just amazing, even to the point of the Australian accent that Al has. I had to keep reminding myself at times that this was the AI clone, and sometimes I pushed it a little bit further, right? And would talk about sailing or coming to Santa Cruz. And it was really quick to point out, no, this is Al's AI clone here. So it kept me in the rails.
That's right. And that's the big thing that at least the platform Delphi, and again, there's other forms of this clone technology, but Delphi really focuses on the person. It's not a fictitious person. You cannot make up a fake person. You can't clone a brand even. It's a person. The whole thing is to emulate how an individual would speak and think and communicate. And it's not to replace the human. That's the big thing I always want to point out because, that's people quick to be like, well, yeah, the human. Well, no, I genuinely believe this should allow us to engage with more people as a whole. And with the more engagement or these conversations, like you said, Tom, because I agree, We're one conversation away. That brings it people closer, more engaged to the human. So like that means there are richer experiences that can happen. Like I even saw Elon Musk, I think, said in an interview yesterday, or I don't know, I saw it this morning, where you're saying basically like the last luxury of the world are live experiences. It's actually having this human experience where, tech and AI can certainly scale us in so many ways and automate things. That's why the more valuable the in-person experience is just going to get more and more valuable. I feel like this allows us to have more of those experiences where it can free a lot of our times and still have that value exchange, that's unique where depending on how engaged they are or if whatever the level is where that human experience comes into play, if it's needed for that person, maybe it's not. But it's an interesting thing that's developing. So it's like I feel like a psychological shift as well.
Yeah, and I was, chatting back and forth with Al, when I first found this, and I'm like, if you wanna work with Play Bigger, associates, right? It's gonna cost you at least $250,000 and well worth every penny. And I'm like, "Well, how are you monetizing this?" And he's like, "Well, I don't need to monetize this, right? It's all the information that's out there in my books, my talks, and everything. So this is my way to give back to smaller entrepreneurs." And so there I was, uh, going for a walk, on vacation and was able to talk with him for an hour, and he even gave me the transcript afterwards.
There you go. And that's a very common way that people come to us. So I'll just say like so Delphi is a platform. We're their official build partners. So any of the top tier clients, you have the ability to basically, when you join, you can choose to work with us as the build team. And also a lot of the celebrity type people you see on the page, we built those. We've had a hand in those clones, which is really cool. Almost 300 of them now. We also do it privately through our own business, but the most common reframe people have is like, wow, I have this body of knowledge, this work. Maybe it's not a podcast, but like you said, maybe it's books or even trainings. But they realize they're like, I want to make a bigger impact. Like most people have this impact thing or legacy. That's kind of on the mind when they start thinking of a clone. They're like, wow, this thing can be in places or talk in languages that I can't do, but I know the value can really affect these humans in a way that's going to raise everybody up. So then, it opens up new ways to generate, communities or create communities or even an email list or some way to engage further. SMS, these are all things that are possible. WhatsApp. So it's like these new ways we can now engage with people. And then, it could lead them to a new thing in monetization too. So yeah, it's a different way of
Let's
thinking. Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a little bit, right? This is the
Please.
podcast interview marketing show, right? And, it's like if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. So, talk to me a little bit about how people are using this in their business to help monetize their business. What are some of the creative ways that you're seeing?
Yeah, there's a great question. This is usually where the aha moment comes in. So there's I would say the four buckets we'll talk about, and these are ways to think of how can I use this? There's a public facing type of clone. So that can be lead generation focused. It could just be freely giving. It depends on the intention or motivation, but like, yeah, maybe that's just where you kind of give all of your best stuff. That's kind of what I do with mine, to be honest, is I have a service side of things, but on the front end, I'll just give all the info. And if people choose to work with me, well, it has options and, it'll lead them that way. So that's on the public side. And you can, like I said, you can gather email, have people opt in to email list, SMS, WhatsApp. It could sync up to your CRM as well and fire off some automations for that public facing clone. That's probably the most popular, obvious one is like, hey, I could put that on my website. I could share it on social media, my email list, all these places, put it in content. So that was my first use case. The second one I would say is a private version for clients only. And this is something that could have a different type of content that's siloed in there for your premium members, people paying you whatever it is to access coaching Could be, if you're a consultant, that could have some of the cool frameworks that you have in higher engagement that people can. It's basically you 24/7 companion or accountability partner is can be in this private form. So again, siloed on different content. Then you can have an internal version, which could be used for your team to use. So it can be trained upon all your SOPs, your all the different HR stuff that you might have in your organization. Where it now they're not going to go to maybe the CEO or CMO or whoever is getting cloned, but they can go to that clone for the first level instead of the executive or whoever it is, you being asked the same question about 20 times. Yeah, so um, there's that, and then there's this private version that is kind of cool too. Is you can make just a you individual clone that you can go on walks and debate with, or come up with new content ideas. Maybe outline a new book that you're working on, or your thoughts. You just got to assume all these versions of a clone are trained on your material, and it's not the wider web. That's the big thing. It's not like ChatGPT where it's going to hallucinate or make up these different things to try to fill in the gaps. Like the point of this is it's your IP, it's you, it's private to you too. You also hold the keys, so it's not training other LLMs, these OpenAI, Anthropic, all that, Gemini. It's using that tech underneath, to power it, but it's your material, which is the true gold. So
It's
yeah.
so interesting that there's so many different ways you can use this. And like you said, the internal resource, right? Everybody's got, well, not everybody, but we've got it where everything's in a Google Drive someplace, right? And you ask me what our vacation policy is. I'll tell you it's in the manual, but I haven't read the manual in a while, right? So much better to ask my AI clone because it'll give you the most up to date answer. And you were talking about using it for paid. I know of one community where the founder of the community calls it co-founder, right?
Mm,
If you want me to work with you nonstop, right? Ask me anytime, any question, you can do that, right? And how much would that cost to have him on 24/7 retainer to answer all the questions? That's incredibly valuable there.
there
And
you go.
even, the people that just want to give back, like Al was doing there, right? It's not, he's already created that information. And it's so amazing.
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, it's a different way to scale yourself. I mean, I genuinely think there's a way. We're in this moment that we can now expand ourselves, like the best of ourselves, in so many different ways, and I think that's the identifying where maybe some bottlenecks are in that, or maybe where you're investing way too much time or resources of your own. You're like, okay, how can we somehow use technology to scale ourselves? Delphi being one way. Of course, there's all these other tools and workflows that we can come up with. And so we're living in a really cool time where I feel like if we scale ourselves, we're actually allowing us to scale the human connection if we do it intentionally.
Exactly. So tell me about the things that it trains on. I mean, how do you build one of these things? And maybe just, pulling behind the curtain here, or,
Yeah.
AI build team. I
Yep.
look at this is, I look at Delphi, it's like, yeah, that's the platform. But
Right.
if you don't set up the platform correctly, garbage in, garbage out. So how do you think about building up that knowledge base there?
Yeah, it's a great question. You're right in that Delphi is the platform. And, I've basically created a full team and company. I have a partner as well, and just awesome people around me where we are also the strategists. So we'll work with people and be like, okay, what is all this stuff we're talking about? Like where are the bottlenecks? How do you envision scaling yourself? And I love to hear what people say. They usually all fall in those four buckets, but people have such creative thoughts and ideas. It's just like anything, even if you went to Go High Level or Infusionsoft or Keep, whatever it's called, and all these places. But it's like you have this almost like magic box. You have ideas, but I'm like, what do I do? How do I build them out now? that's where we specialize and try to get in the mind of the partner we're working with and pair that up with the platform and what's possible. And sometimes, like I said, there's other platforms that integrate to actually execute the vision. Yeah.
And
Right.
it's amazing because it's that strategy behind it, right?
Always.
A tool is going to, amplify. So it can amplify your brilliance or your stupidity, right?
Garbage in,
And
garbage out. Yeah.
garbage in, garbage out. So if you want this to work right, then you've got to come up with the strategy. And I love how you use the example there of, Go High Level, HubSpot,
Sure.
whatever they are, right?
Yeah.
The first time you look at it, it's overwhelming, right?
Yes.
And better to go to somebody that knows how to work on that, right? And it's, whatever it is, the person that is fixing your car, chances are they're not surprised by it, right? We see it for the first time, but they look at it and say, "I can tell you right away what it is," and, because they've seen it a dozen times before.
That's it. So that's it. Yeah, like I said, we've done like 300 of these now, and it's such a new technology where most people it's completely foreign. And I'm talking about some of the smartest early to market people. So it's definitely this unique early time right now where most people just don't even understand the tech, let alone what it can do for them. And I think that's going to change in 2026. But I can kind of walk through how we build these things or the thought process, like I said,
Please.
strategy being a big part, but really identifying the gaps so we count kind of capture the ideas of what people think they want to do with cloning. But then we start to identify, okay, where are the current gaps in their business so we can really understand what the inefficiencies are, what are these workflows that can kind of be produced now, like for instance with my podcast now I have a new lead generation not funnel but flow or an experience that I can walk people through, and I can kind of bolt on multiple things on the back end. There's services, I've always been an affiliate marketer, so it could be recommendations to the my favorite things of the time. Yeah, it's pointing to all my social media, other pieces of content as well. So it's a good way to amplify a bunch of things. But then after we do that, our big thing is we want to get someone launched quickly, because I would say a misconception with a clone is it needs to be a very drawn out big process. Like anything in AI, oh, it's complicated. It's all these, which it can be, but like we kind of pride ourselves to get someone live within a week, assuming we have all their content and all that. We want to get someone showing this off and talking about it, because that's where the magic is. Like when you can show and tell, your clone on stage or on your show or in some content, that's when we've seen the most success for people, is when they get excited about it. That's when they also get the best engagement, and then people start going like, "Oh, I want to try that out." And so we always want to get them out live as fast as possible, at least like a version one. Back to content, so that's usually the biggest lift for people is, okay, based on what you want to do with your clone, we need to source and make sure we have the correct material, all the IP behind the scenes. So that's kind of any, like you said, you were asking about how do you train it? Well, it's like any kind of text, audio, and video. So it could be books, PDFs, Google Docs, all that stuff can live inside of there, get uploaded, organized. Audios, podcasts, it actually syncs up with different podcast RSS feeds, including guesting. So if you were a guest somewhere else, there's actually a feature to look up your name or the show name, and it'll pull it right into there. So you don't even need to have a podcast to leverage that. YouTube is super simple to actually sync from a YouTube channel or multiple channels, playlists, even if you were a guest on someone else's channel. Those are and there's so many other ways to sync up, video, Google Drive, Dropbox. So the idea is you want to source that material, because that's what the clone's going to use for its responses.
How much material do you actually need, right, for it to be meaningful?
Yeah, no, it's good. Everyone's different because Delphi helps to expose the gaps and figure out like, hey, where are the things that people are asking for, or might they ask, that we need to have some content and fill it in. So typically there's no perfect number, but I've seen anywhere from even 200,000 words to about a million. That's like the average, I would say. And if you're, it sounds like a lot, but it's like if you're producing, if you're on podcasts like this, I actually should know the amount of words that would be in, like, let's say a 30, 45-minute episode. But if you've done even a decent amount of those, written some emails, books, like, you would have enough at least to get a version 1 out.
I was amazed because looking at Delphi, it talked different plans and how much content you could put in there. And I'm like, I don't know what a million words is or 5 million words. So I started playing around with that and said, if all of a sudden I've got, dozen webinars that I definitely like to do because those are all teaching, right? I've got the books, I've got some LinkedIn articles that I feel really strongly about, right? And then throw in, I think it was 100 podcast interviews. And I think it still at that point, it was like a million words or something.
That's
And I'm
great.
thinking, all to get that, it's one of these things where we've already done the work. The vast majority of us, the information is out there. There's you know, a, uh, a recording from a keynote that I did someplace, and to put all of that together. And I was amazed when you said that you can get, the version 1.0 up in 7 days, in a week.
Yeah,
That's
it's wild.
amazing.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, most people feel like it needs to be this arduous process, which, don't get me wrong, we've done some extremely custom builds that take a lot of time, and but to get up in a week, I think that's what we're shooting for, is like this, we want this aha moment, this almost demystify what this is. And also just get the buy-in from people, our communities, because especially if you're out there listening, watching, and you have others around you that you want to connect with, you want to bring them closer to your world so they're engaging with you, not only from afar, but like bring them closer to whatever it is that you're doing the best, that you're, how you want to bring value to people. I mean, this is genuinely, I feel like, the way, because it's not going to be an extra lift on your part. It's just, thinking it through, strategy, either doing it yourself or working with someone like us, and literally turning this around and turning it on. Because again, I feel like this is the early period right now that, like, it's gonna blow minds when it's released out there. Yeah.
Well, and uh, it used to be where we'd have to chat, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
type everything in. And I was blown away that, we can have a conversation and talking back and forth. And one of my beliefs is that we're going to a conversational economy,
Yeah, I
right?
like.
For entire human human history, it was pretty much that we talked to each other. And then, then there was writing, then you got the printing press, right? But that's relatively recent. And then all of a sudden we've got, how do we talk with computers? Well, we've got to type in, we've got to code, we've got to do all of these things. And I've always been amazed with science fiction tells us where we're going. And I think of Star Trek or, what's the other one? Where they talk to Hal, the computer. Now, Hal took over on that, but nobody was ever talking, or nobody was going to a keyboard and saying, typing in, they were talking to the computer, they were talking to the hologram. And
Yes.
I noticed that probably within the last 3, 4 months, I just don't type anymore, right? There's computers or programs like Whisperflow where I can just talk.
Best.
And it's the old Mayor Daley thing from Chicago. It prints what I mean, not what I say. Right. So even if I make a mistake and come back, it corrects that. So I really believe that the power of conversations is how we communicate. And now this idea of being able to jump on, Delphi and have this ability to have a conversation with somebody at your schedule whenever you want, and then to get the transcript from it. There's a lot of problems in the world, but we should pinch ourselves in the morning that we have tools like this.
Yeah, it's well said, and I couldn't agree more with the whole conversation away you've said before too, and I genuinely think, almost 3 years into this cloning, my brain still always comes up with new ways how it can be used in the world because the world's evolving so quickly with AI and just how we're all interacting with each other. And if we just open our minds to this possibility of, yeah, we can genuinely connect with millions of people around the globe. We might not personally chat with them, but your likeness and that you can certainly give ban the way that you think and spread it around the world to folks everywhere. I mean, genuinely everywhere, and it'll last the test of time. I mean, who knows? I'm gonna be honest, like AI, there's a part that frightens me and a part that excites me, and I think that's anyone who's in AI. And the more you're in it, and the more you understand it, you're like, wow, yeah, I could take over for sure. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know, who knows where the future goes, but it's being aware and testing things out, but also knowing like, hey, okay, so what am I here to do? Like if you're here on the show listening, you're probably willing to share value with others. You want to connect with more people. So I don't know any better way, at least at this stage now, and you have a head start because most people don't even know about this. And like you genuinely, it's so early that like I figure out how to scale yourself using this tech right now, but do it in a way that you control, that you have, that your data is private, all that stuff. That's why I love this platform and working in this way is you have that control. It's not in the hands of, who knows what, because I don't know. Maybe I'll stop that. That's a whole different conversation, but
That's right.
yeah,
And if you've done the podcast interviews, you've already created the content. There's nothing
you're
really
doing the
more
work.
that you need to do besides continue to create this content.
That's it. Yeah. So,
So,
yeah, go
Joe, uh, I wanted to ask how you're using this, but maybe this is like the lead in of how you're using this even on podcast interviews, because you showed me the page that you made
Oh, yeah.
for this
Yeah.
show beforehand. So talk to me about the thought process behind that of what you want to do, interact with people after they hear you. Like, what's that next step?
The next step. Yeah. And this is something I've done a lot of guesting. This is always you gotta give people the next step, if they're engaged in whatever. In this case, I'd love you to try out my clone, the AI twin that I've made and refined over the last few years. I did make a page just for your folks here, Tom. So if you go to aibuildteam.ai/Tom, TOM, it'll go right to the landing page. You'll see two columns. So one left column has my clone embedded in there. So you could choose to have a text chat or a voice chat. And also on there, so it's basically a profile page that's embedded on a website. So these things can pretty much live anywhere, which is cool. There are some starter questions below. So if you did want to just not think and click a button, you can see how it interacts. And I think seeing is believing, like I said. So you can ask me anything about clones if you wish to. You can ask a ton of marketing knowledge, podcasting tips and tricks on guesting, and also just launching shows, marketing. So about that, it's trained on that kind of body of knowledge. And then on the right hand side of that page, if you choose to, yeah, we do these audits where it's a deep dive into your business. So it's free. So there's no cost to it, but you basically book a time with us and give us just like, I think it's like 4 little fields about your business and kind of what you're thinking about with cloning. And we'll map out what that can look like for you. And even if you wanted to take that and just go build your own thing, go for it. But that way, at least you have a blueprint of how cloning can work for your business. It's
And
all there. Yeah.
uh, you, you do what we always teach, right? Send them to one place, give them multiple ways to say yes. But up to this point, all that anybody's ever said was go here and you can download this. Go here and you can get a free copy of my book. Go here, you can get this assessment. This is the first time anybody has ever said, and I think we'll look back on this date and say, this is the future, right?
Mm.
It's go back to this page and you can talk to me right now. Granted, my AI clone, right? Or if you'd like to talk to my real person in the team, we'll schedule a time right here. And it's like that whole idea of that conversational economy, this idea of interacting with with PDFs and trying to find the answer and, sign up for my newsletter and hope that the next email that I send you answers your question, it's starting to sound archaic, right? It's like just come back there to, AI buildteam.ai/Tom and talk with me. It's like, what a powerful call to action.
That's it. And that's how I use it on my show as well. Sometimes I'll direct them to different pages, but I love to have the clone right there because that's how I envisioned it from day one. That's why I went after the tech. I wanted to make a way that people can engage and just interact freely. And that's it, Tom. It exists. The future's here.
The future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. And I think this is the future, and this will be the standard going forward. Joe, thank you. What's ordinary to you is amazing to others. And thanks for sharing what you're doing. And I really believe a glimpse in the future.
Thank you, Tom. I love the chat. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, happy to help anyone if you're curious. So I'm available in many forms.
Wow. I believe this is going to be one of those conversations where you'll say, I remember where I was when I heard about that. Now, Joe showed us the future, how podcast interviews and existing content can become 24/7 team members, dynamically engaging with leads, clients, and fans. And here's the real gold. Joe's not replacing human connection. He's amplifying it. And he's doing it in a way that's accessible to all of us. Even if you're not techie. If you've ever said, I just want to get more out of every interview. I want to talk with more people without burning out. Well, then this episode is your blueprint. See it yourself. Go and visit aibuildteam.ai/Tom. And you can talk with Joe's AI clone right there. Test it. Ask it questions. See the power of conversational marketing in action. And if you want to scale your message like never before, start building your own digital twin, one podcast interview at a time. Reach out to me over at iamtomschwab.com/clone. That's where you'll see my early test of my AI clone. Because remember, what's ordinary to you is amazing to others. Let's keep sharing that message and sharing it at scale.